In the year 2000, a video game showed you a version of New York City. The skyline, the streets, the buildings. But something was missing. Something that at the time nobody thought twice about. 1 year later, the whole world understood what was gone. This is the story of a video game that didn't just predict one event. It predicted the surveillance state, government conspiracies, biological terrorism, the rise of megacorporations controlling entire countries. And it did it all in the year 2000. This is Deus Ex, and once you see what's inside it, you will never look at video games the same way again. Let's start at the beginning. Deus Ex was released on June 26, 2000. It was a first-person action RPG developed by Ion Storm, a studio based in Austin, Texas. The game was designed by Warren Spector, a developer who wanted to create the most realistic near-future world ever put into a video game. And realistic is an understatement. The game is set in 2052. But the things it describes, the systems it imagines, they didn't wait until 2052 to show up. Some of them showed up within 12 months of the game's release. Let's talk about the first one, the Twin Towers. When you load up Deus Ex and look out over the New York City skyline, something feels off. It takes a second. You're scanning the buildings, the bridges, the water, and then you realize the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers, they are not there. Now, the developers at Ion Storm said this was a technical limitation. The towers were too detailed, too large, and would have caused memory issues on the hardware of the time. And look, that explanation is completely plausible. Games in 2000 had real technical constraints. But here is where it gets interesting. Other buildings made it into the game just fine. Detailed buildings, large buildings. The developers clearly had the ability to render complex structures in that skyline. So why specifically those two towers? And more than that, the game doesn't just leave an empty space where the tower should be. The characters in the game actually reference their absence. There is dialogue in Deus Ex, or a character says the towers were destroyed by a terrorist attack. In the year 2000, 1 year before September 11, 2001. Now, I'm not saying the developers knew something. I'm saying this is one of those moments where reality and fiction overlap in a way that is genuinely difficult to explain, and it gets harder to explain the deeper you go. Because the missing towers are just the beginning. Let's talk about what else Deus Ex got right. Chapter 1. The Surveillance State. In Deus Ex, the government monitors its citizens constantly. Every camera, every phone call, every financial transaction. Tracked, logged, and stored in massive databases controlled by shadowy organizations working alongside the government. This sounded like science fiction. In 2013, Edward Snowden walked out of an NSA facility with documents proving that the United States government had been running a mass surveillance program called PRISM, collecting data on millions of ordinary citizens, phone records, emails, internet activity, all of it. The world was shocked. But if you had played Deus Ex, you wouldn't have been. The game didn't just describe surveillance, it described the public reaction to surveillance, denial, outrage, and then acceptance. The population in Deus Ex knows it's being watched, and over time stops caring. They trade freedom for the feeling of safety. Sound familiar? Chapter 2. Bioterrorism and Engineered Plagues. This one is going to make you uncomfortable. In Deus Ex, a mysterious plague called the Grey Death is spreading across the world. It disproportionately affects the poor. The wealthy and the powerful have access to a treatment called ambrosia, but there isn't enough of it for everyone, so the elite keep it for themselves while the rest of the world suffers. The game explores conspiracy theories about who created the plague, Was it natural? Was it engineered? Was it released deliberately to consolidate power? Now I want you to think about the last 5 years. A respiratory illness spreads globally. The world argues over where it came from. Wealthy nations hoard vaccines while poorer nations wait. Conspiracy theories spread faster than the virus itself. Governments are accused of using the crisis to expand their powers. Deus Ex, year 2000. And before you say pandemics aren't new, this isn't that impressive. I agree, pandemic scenarios had existed in fiction before, but the specific details in Deus Ex go further than a generic plague story. The class divide in access to treatment, the deliberate suppression of information, the use of a health crisis as a political tool. These were not common themes in video game storytelling in the year 2000. This was specific. This was pointed. Chapter 3. Megacorporations replacing governments. In Deus Ex, multinational corporations have grown so powerful that they operate above the law. They have their own armies, they write legislation, they own politicians. The concept of national sovereignty is almost meaningless because the corporations transcend borders. Let's look at 2024. The 5 largest companies in the world by market capitalization, Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, Alphabet, collectively hold more value than the GDP of every country on Earth except the United States and China. A single tech CEO can move global financial markets with a post on social media. Private companies are now launching rockets into space. A private company is embedding computer chips into human brains. Deus Ex didn't just predict corporations becoming powerful, it predicted them becoming ungovernable. It predicted the specific feeling of watching a billionaire operate outside the rules that apply to everyone else, and the world just accepting it.
Chapter 4. Neural implants and human augmentation. This one is almost too on the nose. In Deus Ex, humans are augmented with mechanical and neural implants that enhance their physical and cognitive abilities. The protagonist, JC Denton, is a nano-augmented agent who can see through walls, hack computers with his mind, and run faster than a normal human. The technology is developed by a corporation. It is expensive. It creates a 2-tier society of augmented and non-augmented humans. In April 2024, Neuralink, Elon Musk's brain-computer interface company, announced that its first human patient was using a neural implant to control a computer cursor with his thoughts alone.
The patient's name is Nolan Arbaugh. He is paralyzed from the shoulders down, and he is now playing chess and browsing the internet using only his mind. This is not science fiction anymore, and the concerns that Deus Ex raised. Who owns the technology? Who can afford it? What happens when corporations control access to human enhancement? These are now real debates, happening in real boardrooms and real government buildings. Deus Ex asked those questions in 2000. We are only now starting to answer them. Chapter 5. The Internet Becoming a Weapon. In the world of Deus Ex, information is the most dangerous thing in existence. Governments and corporations fight for control of communication networks, the ability to shape what people believe, to flood the population with misinformation, or to completely suppress the truth, is treated as the most powerful weapon available. The game features organizations that manipulate public opinion, not with armies, but with algorithms, with controlled narratives, with the strategic release or suppression of information at exactly the right moment. Social media manipulation, state-sponsored disinformation campaigns, algorithmic radicalization, deepfakes, AI-generated propaganda. We now know all of these are real. Governments and corporations actively deploy them. We now know that the information war Deus Ex described is being fought right now, every single day, on the phones in our pockets. The game called this in 2000. So the question that nobody has ever been able to fully answer is how? How did a video game development team in Austin, Texas sit down in the late 1990s and produce something this accurate? Warren Spector, the lead designer, has given interviews over the years. He talks about research, about wanting the world to feel grounded, about reading political theory, economics, and history to build a believable near-future society. And that explanation makes sense on the surface.
But researchers and journalists have spent years going through the game's internal development documents, its design notes, its cut content, and the level of specificity in some of its predictions goes beyond what you would expect from even the most thorough research process. The missing towers specifically remain unexplained to the satisfaction of many people who have looked into it. The technical limitation argument has holes. Other games of the same era rendered equally complex urban environments without removing iconic landmarks.
Some people have pointed out that Ion Storm had government consultants involved in the game's development, advisors from defense and intelligence backgrounds who helped the team build a realistic picture of geopolitical threats. If that's true, what exactly did those consultants tell them? That question has never been answered. Here is what I know for certain. Deus Ex is one of the most accurately prophetic pieces of media ever created. It is not alone. We will be looking at other games in future videos that have their own disturbing predictions. But Deus Ex stands apart because of how many of its predictions came true, how specifically they came true, and how early. The surveillance state, bioterrorism and pandemic response, corporate power exceeding government power, neural implants, information as the ultimate weapon, all of it in the year 2000. And here is the part that I cannot stop thinking about. The game is set in 2052. We are not even close to 2052 yet, which means either the game's timeline was too conservative, or there is more coming that we haven't seen yet. The things Deus Ex predicts for the back half of the 21st century include the complete collapse of democracy in several major nations, the emergence of a single global governing body, and a final war fought not with bombs, but with biology and information. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying Deus Ex has earned the right to make me uncomfortable when I read its later chapters. So here is what I want you to do. If you have never played Deus Ex, go play it. Or at the very least, go watch a full playthrough. Pay attention to the background details, the newspaper headlines on the walls, the conversations between background characters, the things that aren't part of the main story but exist in the world. Because the most unsettling predictions in the game are not the big ones, they are the small ones, the throwaway lines, the environmental storytelling, the things that the developers included not because they were plot relevant, but because they were trying to build a world that felt true. Those are the ones that will stay with you. And when you find one that makes your stomach drop, come back here and tell me in the comments, because I read every single one of them. If you want to see the next video in this series, where we look at 3 more games that predicted events nobody expected, make sure you are subscribed, because that video is coming very soon. And until then, keep asking questions, because in a world where a video game predicted all of this, the least we can do is pay attention.